The whispers in hollow pine. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the forest still dripped with the sound of water sliding off leaves. Mist curled low along the ground, twisting between roots and fallen branches. Daniel tightened the straps of his backpack, glancing behind him. The trail had vanished long ago. All that remained was a vague sense of direction and the uneasy feeling that someone or something was following him. He'd come here alone to photograph hollow pine forest before the government fenced it off for logging. Local stories had warned him. Don't go past sunset. Don't step off the marked trail. And most importantly, don't listen if you hear your own voice calling your name. He had laughed them off. Folklore, he'd thought. Just a way to keep kids from wandering into the woods. Now, the air felt heavier, and every step seemed to sink deeper into the earth. The trees stood unnaturally close together, their trunks warped. A faint sound drifted through the fog. Daniel. He froze. It was his name, whispered so softly, he almost thought he'd imagined it. Just the wind, he muttered to himself, gripping his camera tighter. But then it came again, this time from his left. Daniel, come here! The voice was identical to his own. He told himself not to turn. His legs wanted to move forward, back toward where he thought the road was. But curiosity, or maybe something darker, pulled him sideways. He stepped through the wet undergrowth, his boots squelching in the mud. After 10 minutes, he found himself standing before a massive tree, wider than a car, its bark blackened as if it had been burned. Its hollow gaped like an open mouth. The whispering stopped. Inside the hollow, something glimmered. The voice returned, closer this time, right by his ear. Don't run, Daniel. You'll get lost. He didn't listen. He burst into a small clearing, gasping for breath. The mist here was thicker, swirling in unnatural patterns. Shapes moved within it, tall, gaunt shapes with limbs too long, their heads tilting as they watched him. One of them stepped forward. Its face was hidden in shadow, but when it spoke, it was his voice again. We've been waiting. Daniel's mind screamed to run. But his legs wouldn't move. His heartbeat slowed. His vision dimmed. He felt something cold wrap around his wrist, pulling him toward the mist. The last thing he saw before the fog swallowed him was the burnt tree at the edge of the clearing, its hollow now empty, as if whatever had been inside had stepped out to greet him. 3 days later, a pair of hikers found Daniel's camera. If you looked closely, you could see a man crouched inside. It looked exactly like Daniel. The hikers who found Daniel's camera didn't linger. They had heard the stories about Hollow Pine and weren't eager to join the list of missing persons. They handed the camera to the local sheriff, who flipped through the photos without much interest until he saw the last one. Sheriff Waring knew Daniel. Quiet guy, kept to himself, worked at the post office. But the face in the hollow, it wasn't just Daniel's face. The expression was wrong. Too wide of a grin. Too dark around the eyes. The sheriff tried to shrug it off, but that night he dreamed of the burnt tree. The whisper came, soft as silk. "Warren, come here." He woke up sweating, the sound still curling in his ears. By the third night, the dreams changed. It wasn't the burnt tree anymore. It was Daniel standing at the foot of his bed, smiling. Not moving, not blinking, just smiling in the dim red light of the alarm clock. When Warren jolted awake, the room was empty, but his boots by the door were wet, and the smell of pine sap clung to the air. 2 weeks later, the sheriff's truck was found abandoned at the forest's edge. No sign of him. That's when people in town started seeing Daniel again. Or at least, something that looked like him. He didn't speak much, just stood outside houses at dusk, staring until someone noticed him. Then he'd vanish into the shadows. Those who saw him swore his mouth would move, but no sound came out, until they were alone later that night. Then, from somewhere in the dark corners of their house, they'd hear it. "Come here." By the time autumn came, Hollow Pine was almost silent. The logging company had postponed work after several workers went missing. Those who stayed in town locked their doors earlier, kept their curtains shut, and spoke in low voices whenever the forest was mentioned. But one night, Claire Martin, a journalist from the city, arrived. She'd heard the stories and smelled a chance to make her career. Daniel's case, Sheriff Warren's disappearance, it was the kind of thing that could fill front pages. She didn't believe in whispers or doubles. She believed in evidence, and evidence was usually hiding where everyone else was too afraid to look. Claire entered Hollow Pine just before sunset, a camera slung over her shoulder and a recorder in her pocket. She followed the muddy trail deeper, stopping occasionally to snap a photo of twisted branches and mist pooling over the earth. For an hour, nothing happened, just the slow drip of water from the leaves and the occasional crack of a distant branch. She began to think the townsfolk were paranoid. Then she reached the clearing. The burnt tree was there, towering over her, its hollow black as a tunnel. The air smelled like wet ash. She took a cautious step closer. The recorder in her pocket crackled, not from static, but from a voice. "Claire, come here." Her breath caught. She hadn't spoken since entering the forest. She pulled the recorder out and stared at the red light blinking on. Another whisper came, clearer this time. "You'll see. You'll understand." Against every instinct, she raised her camera and stepped to the hollow's edge. The darkness inside wasn't empty. It moved. The shadows shifted, and from within, faces began to appear. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all pressed against the inner room immediately. Sheriff Warren and Daniel. But as she watched, Daniel's face moved forward until it filled the hollow entirely. His eyes were pitch black now. His mouth stretched into a smile that seemed to split his face. When he spoke, it was in her voice. "We're not trapped. We're waiting for you to join us." The ground beneath her feet softened, as if the forest floor had turned to wet clay. Roots coiled around her ankles, pulling her toward the hollow. Her camera clattered to the ground, still recording. The last frame it captured was of Claire's outstretched hand, disappearing into the darkness, followed by the bird tree's hollow, sealing itself shut. The next morning the forest was silent again. But now, if you walk past Hollow Pine at night and listen closely, you might hear 3 voices calling from the mist. And if one of them sounds like your own, run.